Human work must be grounded in purpose. Not just any purpose, of course. Biblically, what matters is that our work be grounded in the divine purpose for our lives. Indeed, human work, as the Bible teaches, is a microcosm or a replica at the creaturely level of God's own work. This is vocation in the deepest sense. And I believe we are today in a crisis of vocation in much of the secular world. It's far from clear what the purpose for work is today, because it's far from clear what our vocation and calling before God is. In his wonderful book, The Call, Os Guinness reflects on the confusion that is begotten in a world without hope, a confusion between work, leisure, and worship. He says this: today we tend to talk of work and leisure as opposites. Work is serious. Leisure is play, it is said. Work is drudgery. Leisure is fun. Work is for pay. Leisure is free. Work is what we do for someone else. Leisure is for ourselves, and so on. But a moment's thought will show that this is not so. Far closer to the mark is the observation that the modern world has scrambled things so badly that today we worship our work, we work at our play, and we play at our worship. But friends, if we want to recover a biblical sense of work, we can do so by placing it in the context of hope. That is, placing it in the context of God's world. Calling requires the deep backdrop of a setting in which God is in control and gives meaning to the world. This big picture background has been largely lost today through many forces such as secularization. Vocation is often thought of as just going into the priesthood. Economic theories are most often put forth which have little or no reference to this larger setting where God is acknowledged. So we have government policies that try to regulate the economy and provide jobs which don't take into account the fact that we are in God's world. Even lay people like me are familiar with some of the broad strokes of modern economic theory. Most of us know something about fiscal policies based on Keynesian economics. John Maynard Keynes famously argued that classical theory was wrong. It held, erroneously, that supply creates its own demand. But during times of crisis, this is not so, argued Keynes, and therefore we need government involvement to increase aggregate demand. Only such a stimulus can help return stability and full employment. Perhaps Keynes brought a needed corrective to an unbridled capitalism, and he was no socialist. And yet, as Bob Hautzford has forcefully argued, he ended up treating economics as a machine, something that kind of works by itself. With a few adjustments, balancing out savings and investments and so forth, full employment can be regained. And of course, you can trace the Keynesian model back to the Enlightenment and the idea that prosperity will justify the means, and the means can include avarice. To use an interesting metaphor, Keynes advocated a large-scale market economy which resembles a greenhouse plant, which only works when there are enough artificial protectors around it, as opposed to a plant out in nature, subject to God's providence, the sunshine, the rain, and so on. In a subtle way, government then has begun to replace providence in the Keynesian and many other schemes of economics. Of course, some government regulation is important. We believe in the propriety of that if we're readers of Romans 13. Surely a purely Milton Friedman-esque supply-side economics is no better than its Keynesian opposite, because it tends to presuppose the goodness of man and the self-regulation of the market. But neither government nor institutions nor individuals are meant to operate in a purely mechanical model. Economics, to be authentic, require, as I've been arguing, the larger setting of acknowledging God's world.